space. Jewish settler leader says Huwara should be wiped out today. The deputy head of the West Bank Settlement Council, Davidi Ben Zion, called on Sunday night for illegal Jewish settlers to wipe out the village of Huwara, the Middle East Monitor reported. Enough with talk about binding and strengthening the settlement. The deterrence needs to happen immediately. There's no room for mercy, Ben Zion tweeted as illegal settlers attacked neighborhoods of the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. Although he deleted the tweet, which was reported by most of the Israeli and Palestinian media, a screenshot that shows that Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich had liked it. A leading figure in the settlement movement spoke to Israel's Khan public broadcaster on Monday morning, saying that it was a shame that the Israeli army removed settlers from Huwara. Why should we stop? We're protecting the lives of Jews. It's a shame that the army even arrived here, Daniela Weiss told Khan. She added that the settlers have lots of guns, so there's no need for military presence. Anyone who thinks that we have to use the army to deal with these attackers, the Palestinians living in Huwara, is mistaken, she says. And from MiddleEastEye.net, Huwara riots, Israel's leaders stoke flames by lauding settler attacks. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich among the senior politicians seen supporting the unprecedented attacks on Palestinian towns in the West Bank. Hours before Israeli settlers set the occupied West Bank town of Huwara ablaze on Sunday, several Israeli politicians called for the Palestinian village to be wiped out. In a since-deleted tweet, David Ben Zion, the deputy head of the Samaria Council that governs illegal settlements in the northern West Bank, called for Israeli politicians to show no mercy and that the village of Huwara should be erased today. The tweet was liked by the country's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, and followed the fatal shooting of 2 Israeli settlers carried out by suspected Palestinian gunmen on Sunday in the town. Ben Zion, who represents more than a dozen Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, including where the attack occurred, later said that he had written the comments in the heat of the moment. Smotrich's liking of the tweet by Ben Zion also drew condemnation and was viewed by some as the state sanctioning of mob violence. Our Minister of Finance, Minister of the Defensive Ministry, and a member of the Security Cabinet supports erasing an entire village when the only sin of its inhabitants is that they are Palestinian, Shir Nasatsky, a social media entrepreneur, said on Twitter. On Sunday, Smotrich escalated rhetoric himself, demanding that the Israeli army hit Palestinian cities with tanks and helicopters mercilessly in a way that would convey that the owner of the house has gone mad. With buildings in Huwara still smoldering and the Palestinian gunmen still on the run, Smotrich took to Twitter on Sunday evening to promote a thread that recommended the collective punishment of the terrorists' families and environment as an effective and necessary tool in an asymmetric warfare. Collective punishment of occupied populations is illegal under international law. At least 1 Palestinian was killed and nearly 400 wounded in the attacks on Huwara and other West Bank towns and villages, Palestinian health officials said. Settlers completely burnt down at least 35 homes and 40 others were partially damaged, and many of the buildings were set on fire while the Palestinian inhabitants sheltered inside. More than 100 cars were burnt or otherwise destroyed. Act with an iron fist. Smotrich and Ben Zion were not the only Israeli leaders, politicians, and commentators pouring fuel on the fire and seeking to legitimize the actions of the settlers. Areya Ehrlich, an editor at the ultra-Orthodox magazine Mishpacha, downplayed the riots by writing, "The thought now should not be of boys whose blood boiled after seeing the bodies of their 2 friends lying in their blood on the road." Whereas the Morrison Har-Melech from Jewish Power, the party of far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, that is part of the ruling coalition, called the riots the righteous cry of hundreds of Samaria residents who came out to protest and demand security. Similarly, another MP from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party sympathized with the settlers, urging the state to act with an iron fist. As videos of violent lawlessness spread on social media with Israeli forces seemingly unwilling to stop rioters, settlers were more than happy to share their plans. One settler filmed himself in Huwara as Palestinian houses burned in the background, predicting the coming end of the Israeli army and the transition to Jewish militias going on to allow the very exciting revenge operation. Immune to the law. Yet the scenes also frightened many on the night, even drawing a comparison to Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, the direct pogrom against Jews carried out by the Nazi Party in Germany in 1938 from a seasoned commentator. The government needs to decide if it acts as a sovereign in the territories, if it is determined to impose law and order on Arabs and Jews alike, or if it serves as a fig leaf for the hilltop youth, wrote Nahum Barnea for the right-wing Israeli news outlet Ynet, referring to the radical settler group. Huwara's closed and burned. That's what I want to see. Only thus can we obtain deterrence. Zvika Fogel, Jewish power politician. While Israeli settlers have regularly committed attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank, Sunday's attacks were almost unprecedented, warned Barnea. Rioting settlers feel immune to the law. Fear of the state does not apply to them, said Barnea. Smotrich and Ben-Giver observed the rioters in Huwara and probably remember themselves. When they were their age, they behaved like them. While Huwara largely abandoned by its Palestinian residents, Israeli settlers rallied in the town, singing in unison under the protection of the army. Huwara is closed and burned. That's what I want to see. Only thus can we obtain deterrence, said Jewish power politician Zvika Fogel, celebrating last night's riots. At least 62 Palestinians have been killed by Israelis this year, at a rate of more than one fatality per day. Meanwhile, 12 Israeli civilians and one police officer have been killed by Palestinians in the same period. This follows a steep increase in violence in 2022 when at least 167 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the highest death toll in these territories in a single year since the Second Intifada. Palestinians' attacks killed 30 Israelis last year. And here is a Palestinian child recounting settler pogrom. This is from mintpressnews.com. Oh, I'm sorry, Mint Press News YouTube.
أول مرة وبكى بمواجهات فوق بين الشباب والمستوطنين وجيش الاحتلال وإجوا شباب الحارة الفوق يجوا يدافعوا عنا وطلع جميع المرسيل هذا والإحجار على على الشباب فوق. طلعنا الصبح بس قلنا الله أكبر، هجموا علينا على الدار وبلشوا يكسروا وحركوا السيارة هناك لعند دار جارنا وولعوا دارهم. بعدين اجوا المستوطنين لهون وكان جيش الاحتلال بحمايتهم واجوا لهون وكسروا الدور وحركوا السيارات برضو بحماية جيش الاحتلال، وجيش الاحتلال بكى يساعدهم ويفتح لهم البوابة. واجت الإطفاء وولعوا المصطبان، اجت الإطفاء رنوا على الإطفاء، اجت الإطفاء كسروها رموا عليهم إحجار. إحنا ضلنا واقفين لحد الصمود، مستحيل نرحل من هان، ضلنا واقفين لحد الصمود، نرحلش من هان الحوارة، لأن هاي بلدي. يحمونا جميع اللي بيشوفنا هسه يحمونا، بدنا حماية، لأنه جيش الاحتلال لأنه كنا السلطة، هاي شايف بمركوا من هان بيرفعوا لنا أصبع، بمركوا مستوطنين يعني بيصيروا يتحركشوا.
Israeli Knesset members satisfied with Huwara burning down. This is Al Mayadeen. Israel media says Knesset members from Otzma Yehudit, Itamar Ben-Giver's far-right party, admired how homes were burnt down in Huwara. Knesset members from the Otzma Yehudit party described Monday the violent attacks carried out by Israeli settlers in Huwara and the occupied West Bank, occupied Palestine, as legitimate. Israeli occupation police minister Itamar Ben-Giver and far-right Israeli party Otzma Yehudit leader Itamar Ben-Giver declined to comment on the attacks, Israeli media has said. Huwara is closed down and burnt down, and this is what I want to see, said Zvi Fogel, head of the National Security Committee in the Knesset. Only this way will we establish deterrence. Deterrence that's not existed since Operation Defensive Shield, the invasion of the West Bank in 2002 has been established, Fogel added, describing the damage done by the settlers in Huwara as good and saying that they deserved a lot of admiration. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society reported late Sunday that illegal Israeli settlers launched raids in Huwara Nablus, violently assaulting Palestinians while the Israeli occupation forces were preventing ambulance crews from making it to the scene. The injuries were sustained as the Israeli occupation forces were providing protection for the illegal settlers, while the latter were vandalizing the property of Palestinians, including arson, as Israelis were or setting fire to Palestinian cars and homes. Reportedly, as the Israeli occupation forces were preventing ambulance crews from accessing the scenes, the settlers were attacking the emergency vehicles. The settlers are setting fire to Palestinian properties in Huwara, so far burning down several homes and cars, on Al-Mayadeen, an Al-Mayadeen correspondent said. According to Palestinian sources, more than 150 Palestinians were injured in the attacks of the occupation forces and settlers, and 52 Palestinian homes and 130 Palestinian cars were burned. A civil defense vehicle was also destroyed. The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced the martyrdom of Sameh Hamdallah Akhtash, 37-year-old, who succumbed to severe wounds sustained by live bullets from the occupation forces and settlers' attack on the villages of Zatara near Nablus.
يقدر يجي ولع عند سيارتين باب الدار ولعت الدار اي حدا بيقدر يجي شباب اول بورين عند حواره.
Israel media reported early on Sunday that 2 settlers were killed with an M16 rifle in a shooting operation near the town of Huwara Nablus in the occupied West Bank. Israeli Channel 12 reported that the one behind the operation rammed the car of the 2 Israelis, then got out of his car, shot them and left the scene. After the operation, the leader of the Israeli opposition, Yair Lapid, described the situation as total chaos after Israeli occupation settlers aggressed the area and rampaged through properties of Palestinians, setting dozens of vehicles and houses ablaze. In addition to attacking the residents of the town, the government has lost control of Jewish terrorism, the cabinet, the Knesset, and the so-called settlers. Lapid said on his Twitter account, a few days before this operation, Inspector General of Police Kobi Shiftai said the Israeli occupation is witnessing a period of escalation, noting that there's a significant increase in the number of warnings. He added, I've tried to refrain from giving interviews for the time being, but if there's anything preventing me from sleeping, it's the situation we're in. All right, watch this space, and remember that your engagement by way of a like, share, and or subscribe will propel us at warp speed towards the continuation of our mission to truthfully go where no news will have been going before.